Welcome to session 20 of ServiceNow CISIRM exam preparation. So we're covering different links which are available in the book. So we covered until the implementation checklist. So next we move to the next one. The groups table in the platform. There is that. Uh, then we look at create policy. How to create a policy and what is the role required for this. Let's keep going. So the procedure and all of that, right? We have different types: policy, procedure, standard, plan, checklist, framework, templates, and all of that. And next we have the next link is GRC. Then we have NIST PDF, like what is NIST and what standards are available as part of NIST. So here we have this NIST, security and privacy controls for information systems and organizations. It talks about different controls and policies and everything. So you have requirements and controls. It talks about the structure of controls and how they can be leveraged and all of that. So this is a good table to get started with. Next we move to the next link. There is a GRC policy template in the knowledge base, but how to use policy templates in my account. So that is that. Then you have product documentation, policy authoring and redlining in compliance workspace. So this talks about how do we leverage this feature, and along with Office 365 integration. So that's that. Next we have and there's a knowledge article. I didn't have access to that, but yeah, I will share the link so you can try if you can access it. Policy exception integration, support and troubleshooting. So here, a user assigned to a problem can choose to defer the fix for problem. And policy exceptions integration registry. So this feature talks about that. Register an application and table with GRC and integration registry. So how do we restricted call access privilege? Please provide restricted call access privilege for all required tables from script include, and source scope GRC policy compliance management. Problem request source table indicator policy exception target table. Entity mapping section, request source section. Create a action. And so basically this knowledge article talks about how to integrate GRC with other ServiceNow apps, because within GRC space they are the tables have access and so on. But if you have to do it from outside of it, like from incident for example, then you need to do the step integration registry method. Right? This talks about that. And next is factors in advanced risk assessment. What is a factor? What are different types of factors? So we have factors are questions that you can use to analyze risks. Factor appear on risk assessment instance. There are different types of factors: manual, automated, scripted, automated, group factor. Type of factor contribution: qualitative, quantitative, both. And manual factors: text choice number, currency percentage, group factors, automated factors. So some examples are number of employees in project, revenue of a business unit, business criticality of process. Scripted automated factors, individual assessment of controls, control environment assessment. Two ways of assessing it. Example is employee training, uh, customer due diligence, and so on. And yeah, all of that. Next, we have a more knowledge article. Let's see, what is this one? Okay, no access. So I can move on. Uh, we talked about community already, so there's a blog post. So let's see if it opens that blog. Okay, it doesn't. So we can move on. Next is product documentation again. Risk life cycle using advanced risk. So let's open that. Workflow of risk using advanced risk. So prior to version 14.0, when migrate to advanced risk was enabled, the risks were only classified as either active or inactive. Starting 14.0, as a risk owner, when you enable advanced risk, you can use the following states of your risks: draft, assess, respond, monitor, and retire. State of risk with advanced risk assessment: draft, assess, respond, monitor, retire. All the states are action available. For each state, as explained in table. So we have draft, save, assess, monitor, retire, navigate to assessment scope, the history review, assess, all of that, right? So basically, these are all what you can do via workspace. Next, we have managing risk responses. Again, one more documentation link. A risk response is a strategy used to deal with risks after the risks are assessed. And we have different types of them: accept, mitigate, avoid transfer. Risk response workflow is notable for an object assessment. And that is that. And then project risk assessment using advanced risk assessment. Manage a project risk using project risk assessment capability. Risk admins, project manager, risk assessors can manage the complete project lifecycle using the project risk assessment capability. So with version 11.0, you can use GRC, advanced risk assessment, to use project risk to your project risks. Benefits: identify risks from a standard taxonomy, risk for projects within the project form, identify assess risks from project from itself, assess the inherited residual risks, elevate a project risk to enterprise risk if risk impacts enterprise, calculate roll-up scores, only projects that are assessed contribute to finance scores, your heat map, all of that. The use case, risk management of complex project may be aligned to ISO 3100 risk assessment standards, workflow of project risk assessment, configure PPM and fast risk integration, assign project tasks, assess project tasks, elevate project tasks, and so all of that. So yeah, that's about that feature. Associate item in application table to control objective. Next one is associate an item in application table to control objective. Using the policy as code engine, policy related list in the compliance workspace maps to control objective with PACE policy. Compliance managers have the ability to map the control objective with PACE policies. What does that mean? When a PACE policy is mapped to a deployable instance, and if the PACE policy is already assigned to control objective, then when the association of policy to deployable instance occurs, a trigger is initiated from the configuration data management to create entities and controls. When PACE policy is mapped to a deployable instance, and if the policy is not associated to any control objective, then when the PSC is mapped to control objective, the entity and the controls are auto-generated, so the deployment instance is already mapped to policy. So you navigate to compliance workspace and then look at compliance library control objectives, all of that. To add a PSE policy to control objective, click PSE policy layered lists. The PSE policies that are inactive or listed on pop-up if PSE policies do not have a deployable instance mapped. Do it at this time, then the entity and controls are whenever the deployable instance is ready. So that is that. Okay. So next is configure compliance data source registry. Let's look at this. Set up compliance data source registry CDSR that provides ability to set policies in other service products with control objectives and policy compliance to inform an organization's overall compliance stand and to perform policy exceptions when required. Based on the association, entities are generated for associated assessed objects from the target application table and controls are generated automatically. CSDR facilitates easy integration between GRC and other products such as DevOps, HR, SecOps, and others to meet customer compliance validation and management. So compliance data source registry, name application table, and as assessed object table, relationship to application table, application field on assessed object table, and so on. So basically, it's trying to associate a table from other scopes to this GRC control objective is what we're trying to accomplish here. And there's also a setup generic framework compliance data source registry as well, which is available here. The table names SNPAC policy, SNCDM deployable, SNPAC policy mapping, and so on. So that is that. Next we talk about more product documentation, metrics in IRM. So what are metrics? Risk metrics are defined as a quantifiable measure that is used to track and assess status of specific risks. Metrics help in track the exposure of a risk over time. Risk indicators are an important tool with operational risk management. Indicators facilitate the monitoring and control of risks. Therefore, they may be used to support the range of operational risk management activities and processes such as risk identification, risk and control assessment, the implementation of effective risk appetite and risk management and governance frameworks. Indicators also only support one type of result called pass or fail, do not support data types such as number, percentage, or monetary amount. Metrics provide better escalation notification mechanism for indicators, allowing specific definition of data and classification of indicators. The key benefits of metrics are as follows: provides continuous visibility into risk and compliance, alerts respective owners about change of risk and compliance performance, automate metric data, efficiently monitor and shares risk information. Uses of GRC in ESG management and IRM. So, okay, let's talk about that. We have different types of metrics: KRI, key risk indicators; KCI, key control indicators; KPI, key performance indicators. So this is the flow for that. Ops, risk manager, business org, risk manager, employees. Start, define the overall metrics framework and educate and train businesses on the framework. Identify the risks and controls need to be monitored. Identify the KRS and KCS for this, define these thresholds. And identify the data owners for these risks and controls. Review the KRI, KCI, define the thresholds. Provide data for the KRI, KCI. Then you have monitor the reports for the enterprise, monitor the reports for enterprise, right? So Difference between indicator and metric. Indicators are used as automated control tests or assessments, while metrics are used as KRS or KCI monitoring tool, used for continuous monitoring of risks and controls for collecting support data, used to measure degree to which system, component, process possess a given attribute, can be used to monitor a risk or control, can be used to measure any GR subject, can only have binary values, can have any qualitative, quantitative values. That's about metrics. Then you have risk appetite and tolerance and risk. A risk appetite and tolerance and advanced risks. You can define a risk appetite and tolerance within your organization by using advanced risk application. A risk appetite and tolerance can enable your organization to define the boundaries for acceptable and unacceptable risks. Overview of risk appetite. Risk appetite is the amount of risk that an organization is willing to take to achieve its strategic objectives. Risk appetite can be defined in qualitative, quantitative terms. For example, let's say the lending institution provides a loan to some small scale industries. The lending institution has defined 5% of the target for the current fiscal year. A non-performing asset is a loan or advance for which principal or interest payment remains overdue. Benefit of using risk appetite better guidance for first-line employees. Take risk within organization's expectations and define and manage actions within their reach. Assess the risk status. Assess all possible risks. Monitor your risk posture. Initiate a risk mitigation plan. Overview of risk tolerance. Risk tolerance is a standard deviation from defined risk appetite that an organization can withstand without risking organization's objectives and goals. Setting up risk appetite and tolerance. A risk administrator can configure and set up risk appetite for your organization. And you have this here. Next, there's a learning course, classic risk assessment and common controls and risk assessment. Common controls. By linking risks to common controls and risk management, you can reduce the time and effort that is needed to manage and apply these centralized controls to your reliant entities. For example, a fire sprinkler system can be a common control for multiple business units such as finance, security, HR. Or you have common controls. Every organization has multiple business and shared functions such as IT and so on. To mitigate risks in reliant entities, a risk owner can link their risks to common controls. By linking the risk owner can reduce the effort as required to understand and test these common controls. Benefits of common controls: you can spend less time, you can only need to manage active controls. Common controls and risk: if control objective risk the reliant entity of the control matches the risk entity, the risk control association is established automatically. Reliant entity of control matches the risk entity. Okay. You can also inherit common controls risk when the risk entity is marked as reliant entity in common controls. Any change to risk agreement and control object relationship can impact risk control association as well. Inherent common controls. So there is inherit common controls. Inherit. So which means you have the option to inherit them. Only active relationships between risks and controls are maintained, and any historic relationships are automatically deleted. Common controls in risk assessment: you can inherit common controls when it is marked as a reliant entity in common control. For example, shows the inherit common controls option risk assessment form. Common controls in risk mitigation task: you can inherit common controls to risk mitigation task when it is marked as a reliant entity. And the risk mitigation task has to be in draft or work in progress. Common controls and risk event: a common control is automatically linked to a risk event when underlying risk has materialized for the risk event. It enables the controller to identify when the common control fails and take immediate action if the common control does fail. This is an example. That's your common controls. And then we have the GRC fundamental scores and the last 15-minute GRC log. So that's about this video.